Good morning, everybody. I'm going to be doing some work in my altered sketchbook. And hopefully, if you're up and you've got your coffee ready, of course, you don't want to get your coffee next to any of your art materials. I'm going to put it separately, but I'm always like getting up in the morning and having my good hazelnut coffee. And in this altered sketchbook, it's type, basically. It's an old book. And I'm going to be using up some of my just excess paint. I never like to throw anything away. I did not prime, size, or prepare the pages. This is like kind of a coated book, coated stock pages to begin with. Basically because I'm just using up materials. And I just am doing this more as an exercise to play and to experiment and to just kind of use those creative muscles as I'm getting warmed up in the morning. So we'll put the coffee aside and we'll get sketching. So I'm going to start out with my just a regular painting knife, but I've got some other tools I've kind of pulled out today. Of course, my scraper and maybe a stick, maybe my toothpick, but who knows? So I'm going to kind of start out with some of the colors that I know I can't really reuse just because they're almost dead. And you can see it's starting to scum out. And I'm going to just start applying that to the page. Now I could tape off my sections. You can see the little uh, stuff coming out there. I could tape off my pages if this was a more of a sketchbook that I liked in terms of wanting to keep things, but it doesn't matter. I put a little tape behind it so it just wouldn't lift up. But other than that, not really necessary to do stuff. My basic intent is just to use up this paint and have fun. One of the things that I like about doing stuff, and I'll just wipe off whatever excess um, stuff in just a sketchbook that doesn't have images in it, is that the text just becomes texture, It just becomes texture. And the coated pages kind of help so that the oil paint doesn't recede or, sink into the surface. And one of the things that I really love about working just this way is it's kind of meditative, you know? So I'm doing a two-part process. I'm cleaning up um, what should be the end of the paint, really. Not really great to use on my paintings. Paint that's kind of gotten old is just to play with it, you know? Even when I've got just one color, just moving it around onto the surface. When I'm using this process in my studio, I don't have as much lights on. I use the natural light, but to film this, I have to. So it creates a little bit of a glare for me, but that's the only way that I can kind of show you guys what I'm doing. Kind of just moving it around, kind of feeling it, you know? Just with that one color. We did some other stuff before we used a lot of colors and really built it up. So we go different, right? So let's see. This one's about to go. Get some of this up. Don't need so much. And just let it drag on. And I'm going to work the whole spread. I'm just going to see where that goes. And, as you start putting something down on the surface, okay? And the trick of this game, I call it a game. That's what I play in the morning, is to just start moving things around the surface. And we start to think more boldly. Where can it go? Going off the edge. Where can that go? And just to notice how, like, the minute you get darker on one edge, what can happen, you know? It's that graphic quality of what's going on. And then we just apply. And many times people ask, like, when you're doing your work, how do you know to put a certain stroke there? I don't. The surface tells me. And how the surface tells me is I get in the zone. And of course, talking isn't helpful when you're getting in the zone, but I think I've done this enough that I can just go with it. And you don't have to cover everything, You can sometimes just like something as a start, the start of something. Isn't that exciting to have a start to something? Something that maybe you would have not even started had it been for, this excess paint that you had left over. And that's the beauty of doing something within this process, having that leftover paint. And this is just kind of a neat tool I kind of like sometimes. Kind of use it kind of as an imprint. And I move it. Kind of cool. Just kind of put it down as a kind of this dragged print. And sometimes I like to just get it on the edge. There you go. Look at that. Fire. Fire right in there. Get it on the edge. Fire it in. See it? Get it on the edge. I don't know if the lighting you can see. There. Maybe one more. Ooh, brought in some other color there. Two-toned. That's the cool thing too about when you're working in a sketchbook. You can just take the paint and layer it on your knife or whatever it is you're doing. Pick up a couple of colors and then kind of move it around. And as you know, with my scraping method that I've showed you before in another video post, I just scrape up a bunch of colors. So it's like a total potpourri. So I thought, I'm going to have to do something a little bit different each time so you guys see all the different games that I start playing with doing stuff in my sketchbook. So I'm going to see what other color. Getting my paper towel here. Okay, let's see. This one's kind of fresh. I might be able to use this color. So if I have something that's kind of it's got a little life to it, I put it aside. So I'll just use what I grabbed, but I'm going to put it aside because I can use that to paint with. So, and I'm going to kind of go in with this yellow color. Scrape up whatever I had left. And that's all I got because I'm going to use the rest of it. Get it all off. Just bring it down. Bring it down. Grabbing more paint. Bring it down. Let's get it in there. Bring it down. Whoops. The edge. And bring it down. So I've got some. We can use it up. Bring it down to blend. So there's really some cool stuff going here. Reminds me of like leaves, you know? See what else? We got some of this and some of this. Yeah, this stuff is really gonna go pretty soon. So we can use that up. Let's get, so as you notice, it's an opaque color. These are more transparent colors. You can see the scum starting to set up. Oops. Get myself oriented here. The transparent colors kind of act like glazes. You know, they go on like a thin veil of color. Thin veil of color. That's all she wrote with that. I can scrape back and get some of the variations between, highlight and, mid-tone and whatnot. All right, usually this color goes pretty fast. Yeah, this one's going to go pretty soon. So let's see where we can put that. I don't need that much though. Let's see. Let's get just a little bit. And that's the great thing about the game, right? Is my instincts might say, I don't really need this, but the game says you got to use it. So it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge to figure out where you're going to go with it. You gotta resolve, gotta figure it out and let it just fly. And also, this is a tight space for me, so I'm like, am I letting it fly? Because sometimes I'm a little limited to get the camera in so you can see everything. But now I like, it's kind of that peekaboo thing that I like going on. And let's see. And as you've noticed in our master class, when we did, planning and discovery, when we talked about concept development, how I use these sketchbook experiments as inspiration to backgrounds and figurative ways of handling some spatial content and lots of things like that. And also working in this smaller book, you're talking about the relationship between the size of a mark and the space. And I know in Patreon Art Feedback Days and Masterclass, we talk about that a lot, because your tools give you a certain size, okay? A shape, a size. It's predetermined of a mark, and you can't go bigger, you can't go smaller. That tool makes a certain mark, all right? So if that tool makes a certain mark, then when you're doing something, can't change that. So if you go bigger than that relationship of that mark to what it is you're doing, then you have a different kind of mark because now the relationship of that, I just moved over. Some of this color is still good, so I moved it over, but I'll just use it up here. some, gives it just red tone. Okay. So what else is gonna go here? Is this gonna go? No, this is still pretty good. We'll leave that. Again, just wipe the excess off. Now, what else? Yeah, that looks like it's gonna go. All right, so I think we got most of this dead color of what I'm not gonna keep. And I'll see where that goes. And then I'm gonna go in and scratch in to the surface after that because paint's starting to set. Yeah, that's still usable. Okay, let's scrape up whatever last bits are left of all. And I don't even mind if some of the scum stays in there because I'll just use it as texture. So this is all my excess color. All right, just got a bunch of scum here. I'm just going to put it on. I'm going to scrape back. Okay. And to scrape back, I use my handy dandy blade. And I just go right in. Is there a tape under there that's driving me? Yeah. Sometimes my tape gets in the way of, I didn't want the pages to move, but then it traps my mark a little bit. But do you see that? Do you see how when I was able to scrape back to that page, it's kind of got just a glaze back onto it? OMG, I love that. It's just like so cool. And I can do that in many, many different ways. One of the things I like doing is I like doing these sort of semi-graphic, circle-y kind of things. Of course, I have a million different instruments that I can do that with. One of them I haven't even worked with today yet. I can expand and I can press and I can expand and I can press and I can expand. And all I'm doing right now is just scratching to the surface so that when I scratch back, it's going to have just a veil of leftover. And go back this, and then it changes the degree of the marks. Of course, brushes would do even different. But now I've just got a complete blend with some areas of marks. And then I'm going to keep this because I kind of like where that's going. But let's do just one thing. So we always like to put something else of color on here. And it's hard because this isn't, this is the book cover, so I'm not getting a nice flat surface like this one might. I get the red back just a little bit. Some dynamic stuff in that page going. And it'll pick up all on the texture that I had from before. Just a little bit here. A little bit of dark to kind of make it come together in an interesting way. And then we'll leave it. There. That's it for today, for this session of paint. And as you can see, this in and of itself could be something really interesting. So we do, let's kind of just clean up a little bit. And let's take a look. These ones clean fairly easily. Getting a wipe. And this, I didn't even use my stick or my toothpick, but you don't have to. Okay, so let's just clean up our area. Working on my glass, which cleans rather nicely. And I'll scrape up all that dead paint over there. But then you start looking. And sometimes I'll photograph stuff too, because then it helps me remember, because I got a lot of stuff. Is we start looking and we say, well, how can maybe I can hold this page, you know, like this. Maybe it changes, when I hold it like that. I mean, like right now, when I'm looking at this particular spread, I'm trying to hold it so you can see in the camera, there's a lot of just beautiful action. Like I could do something where maybe a face came out from here, and then this was kind of the beginning of a headpiece. And then this could inspire me to even drop down the panel, down here to do something with it. So, you keep turning it and you say, you know, maybe there's something that comes out from here. I always have like I always find the orientation that I work in is sometimes the orientation that things end up being. But let's take a look at the top panel. So see how you can see where we're going here. But it's got a lot of nice dynamic stuff. No matter how we turn it, I can start to see something. And many of you know that, this is a great start. If I worked on a panel, letting it dry for a painting to happen. Very, very cool. So that's my little working in an altered sketchbook. I usually just put this somewhere, let it dry, and then I can work into this. So let's see what you do today.